I am. Two words that spoke volumes. Two words that echoed the strains of Old Testament narratives, angering Jesus' opponents, but breathing life into his disciples. 7 bold, remarkable statements in the Gospel of John begin with these exact words, giving us profound insight into Jesus' identity and showing us how to truly find ours. Our cries of, "I am empty," are met with, "I am the bread of life." Our pleas of, "I am lost," are countered with, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Two simple words addressing every one of our fears, doubts, and pain. I am.
Well, happy Easter. Oh, you guys, just go home. Come on, it's Easter. Make some noise. It's okay, you're in church, it's okay. Man, the 9:15 crowd was way more alive than 10:45. You got more sleep. Come on, guys. But we're glad that you're here. Man, let's give it up for the 6 baptisms this morning. Can we give it up for that? Awesome to celebrate life change and thankful for what God is doing in and through every single person that comes into this room. And if you're coming into this room for the very first time, new to Southside, we just want to say welcome and we're glad you're here. And there's a Connect card in the seat in front of you or in your worship guide. There's a place that you could just scan that QR code. It'll send you to a digital Connect card. And we'd love for you to fill out as much or as little information so we can just connect with you better. You can place the Connect cards in the drop boxes in the lobby. I'll be in the lobby following service. Would love to put a name with a face, answer any questions you have about Southside and what God's doing here. But we're glad that you've chosen to worship with us on Easter. I also want to give a huge shout out to all of our volunteers. We have over 75 volunteers this morning on Easter Sunday, whether in the AV team, in the kids' preschool. We opened up and launched a brand new preschool room this morning. Can we give it up for our volunteers? Whether that's you or last service, God is working in powerful ways, and Easter changes everything. And I'm so excited for us to gather together and make much of Jesus this morning. We've been in a series for the past several weeks called I Am. It all started from Exodus and Moses, who encountered God in a burning bush and had a conversation, and Moses said, "Who am I going to say that I encountered? Who says all these things?" And God says, "I am who I am." Meaning, in our language, I am what you are not. Whatever you need, I am. Whatever you lack, I am. The situations and circumstances, I am. And in the Gospel of John, John gives 7 I am statements that clearly define who Jesus is. And the reason he does this is, number one, is to communicate to the people that he's talking to and the people that Jesus encounters that he is who he says he is. He's the same God in the Old Testament to the same God in the New Testament. And then when people would see this and hear these I am statements, that their eyes would be open to who they are encountering. The second is because of an encounter that took place or a story that took place that Jesus wanted to clearly expand on. For an example, when Jesus says, "I am the light of the world," there was a woman caught in the act of adultery. They got thrown into the front and center of Jesus, naked, exposed, shame and guilt, and that Jesus would meet her exactly where she was at and tell her that I am the light of the world. Follow after me. I am the door where a man that was healed by Jesus would fall into the trap of religion and scribes and Pharisees and the so-called believers of the day. and that they would kick him out of church, and Jesus would pursue after him and say, you've been walking through door after door after door that brings you no hope, that brings you no joy. I am the door. Come through me, and you will receive salvation. And today, as we end our series, I can't think of a better way this Easter to finish our I Am series with this claim: I am the resurrection and the life. If you have your Bibles, I want to encourage you to get them out. There's a worship guide hopefully you should have received when you came in this morning. I'm so thankful for our first impressions that have helped during the process of getting you to where you are today. But John 11, verse 25, Jesus' claim says this: I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. You know, fear of death or death in general is one of those ever-present realities for us that we can sometimes manage to ignore until we can't. But as the death rate in our world, I saw on the news just recently that 1 out of every 1 and 100% of people die. It's amazing. It's something we eventually face. Eventually, death takes us from everyone and everything that we hold dear, and maybe some of you have felt that this year. The death of a family member, a death of a friend, spouse. Another felt need that we see in this story and with this claim in John chapter 11 is also the disappointment with God. Disappointment with God. You are going to see in this story that we look at today, and maybe some of us have this deep, unsettling question about why God didn't do something that he should have done. You did the right thing. You prayed. You believed. You trusted in God. But God didn't do his part. It just doesn't make sense. The person still died. You still didn't get that job. Your marriage still fell apart. You didn't have that kid that you and your spouse prayed for. It never came true. If God is loving, why didn't he help in the moment of crisis? Where was he? And yet you are here this Easter, and we're so thankful that you're here, but maybe you're here and you're struggling and you're not even sure if you buy into all this stuff anymore. The story in John 11 starts with this question many of us have and have asked at some point in our lives, and maybe some of you are asking this morning, and it's this: if Jesus really loved me like I've always taught, that I've always been taught, then why didn't he show up? Where was he when blank? And how can I trust him after blank? John 11, we see Lazarus, Mary and Martha, and Lazarus gets sick, and Jesus loved everyone, we're taught, but he especially loved Lazarus, Mary, and Martha a little bit more. Some scholars would say that Mary, Martha, and Lazarus were childhood friends of Jesus. They grew up together. They played ball together. They played tag together, like they were friends. And Martha sends to go get Jesus because Lazarus has been sick, and this is no ordinary sickness. Lazarus is dying. And by this point in Jesus' ministry, Jesus was known as a miracle worker. The perception of Jesus is that he heals people. His teachings were remarkable, and people flocked towards his teachings, but his miracles were extraordinary. And so Martha sends to go get Jesus. Now, you would think that when Jesus heard of this news of the sickness and dying of Lazarus, that he would stop everything that he was doing just to go be with his childhood friends. Martha sent for Jesus to come, and they waited and waited. But Jesus never showed. And Lazarus died. Maybe the most confusing part of this story in John 11, we see in verse 5. It says this, "Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was." For us, those two sentences don't make any sense. It makes sense for us to say, if Jesus loved Mary and Martha and Lazarus, immediately when he heard this news, he ran to go be with them because he cared for them and he loved them. Childhood friends. You would think that he would stop everything that he was doing, including healing a random person, to go be with Lazarus. It says he loved them. So he stayed where he was at. And this was not only confusing to Mary and Martha, this was confusing to the disciples. But this is what Jesus said in verse 14. "Lazarus has died. And for your sake, I'm glad I was not there, so that you may believe." But let's go to him. And so here's the central question to this story and the central question this morning on Easter. Believe what? Believe what? What is it about himself, Jesus, that he wants us to believe? There's something so important that Jesus wants them to believe, that he is going to let Lazarus die. More importantly, to crush his childhood friends and for their hearts to be temporarily broken. What is it that Jesus wants us to believe that this would take place? And the same question is for us in the room today. Maybe you're new to church. I met 2 people this morning that said, "David, this isn't just our first time at Easter at Southside. This is our first time at church on Easter in general." So maybe you're new to the church. Maybe you're welcomed back in because of the event of Easter and family and baptism. Or maybe you're here because this is what you do. I believe God has something for you this morning. But by the time Jesus finally gets to Lazarus, Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. And Martha runs out to meet Jesus. And she sees him. And she verbalizes the thought that all of us have had in our lives, and maybe some of you walk into this room asking this right there. Verse 21. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." "Lord, I did everything right. Why didn't you show up for us? Why did you not do what you were supposed to do?" Have you ever asked that question before? I know I have, multiple times. I remember very clearly, I was 12 years old, asleep one night when I woke up to my mom screaming. I woke up and I ran into her room to find my dad struggling to breathe and having a heart attack. I remember him wanting help and we couldn't provide that, so we called 911. The ambulance came, and when they showed up, we did only what we could think to do. It's me, my 7-year-old, she's 7 years older than me. Me and my sister and my mom went into her room. We just got on our knees and we just prayed. God, if you are real, intervene in this moment. God, if you are who you say you are, God, if you're loving, if you're sovereign, that you would help my dad be okay and alive. The people, medics, they took my dad into an ambulance. We got in the car. We followed the ambulance to the hospital. We got into a room, and I remember the doctors came in, and they said, he didn't make it. My dad died at the age of 45 with a massive heart attack, and here I am at 12 years old, stepping into the biggest stages of a man fatherless. Some of you know what that feels like. Maybe it's not getting the job that you wanted. Maybe it's the death of someone, the throwing in your towel in marriage. But what is it that Jesus wants us to believe? In the moment of tragedy, fear, unknown, Jesus gives us 4 things through this I am statement in this encounter that he wants us to see of himself that will lead us to believing in something. Because that's the central question all throughout John 11. What is it that you want us to believe? Why? Number 1, he wants us to see tears. I'm going to give you 4 words, just simple words, that's radically, hopefully going to help you see God in a different way that leads you into believing something maybe you've never believed before. Tears. We see when Jesus saw the grief of Mary and Martha, he wept. John 11, verse 35, the shortest verse in Scripture. Jesus wept. I grew up, trying to do the Bible challenges and the speed Bible drills and the RAs. And hey, that's my verse. Jesus wept, right? The easiest verse to memorize outside of John 3:16. Jesus wept. And the Son of God, who created everything into existence, that knows everything and everyone, wept with 2 sisters that were crushed about their situations and circumstances at hand. Jesus is fully God. But in this moment, he is fully human. Jesus knew what was happening and what was going to happen. It says in John 11 that he knew exactly what he was going to do before he even pursued after Mary and Martha and even pursued after Lazarus. Eventually, he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. In about 30 minutes, Lazarus is going to come out of that tomb. Everybody's going to be rejoicing. Everybody's going to be celebrating, just like we did watching 6 people get baptized. Everybody's going to go crazy. So why in the world, if Jesus knew what was going to happen, why would he be crying? He's grieving because he wants you to understand how he feels about you. In your pain, in your sorrow, he knows what it feels like for you, and he weeps with you. His heart is knit to your heart because he created you in the image of himself. He knows everything about you, and he still loves and pursues you. He feels deeply what I feel. As a father of 3 boys, twins that are 8 and a 6-year-old, there's nothing worse than kid pain and kid hurt. And if you're a mother and a father, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When my kids hurt, I hurt. When my kids have pain, I feel pain. And this is exactly the situation that Jesus, the Father, shows us. This is great comfort to know that I have a Savior who has entered my pain. That the tears in my eyes, and let me tell you, there were many tears in that moment. They're matched with tears in his eyes. What a friend we have in Jesus. That's why I love what it says in Hebrews 4:15, that we don't have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. But in every step of the way, he is there with us, and he's done it without sin. Why would Jesus weep with Mary and Martha when he knows 30 minutes Jesus or Lazarus is about to come out of that tomb? So you and I can believe. The second word this morning, not just tears, because God is fully God and fully human. Number 2, anger. Anger. You show anger in those moments. It says in verse 33, when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in the spirit and greatly troubled. In Greek, the phrase deeply moved refers to several things, but 2 means disturbed or greatly have great anger. And with this anger, he moves toward the grave in verse 43, and he shouts to death with a loud voice. With Jesus, who was just there weeping, who met me exactly where I was at, now we see this mighty warrior to face death right in its face. Jesus hates death. He hates sin. He hates injustice. Not everything happens for a reason. One of the greatest, a pastor told me one time this phrase that I'll never forget. He said this, he said, David, not everything happens for a reason. But he says, God can turn a mess and turn it into a beautiful message. I don't know about your life. I don't know about your situations. I don't know about your circumstances. But we see in John chapter 11, this is a disaster. And Jesus uses it so that we will believe. So Jesus walks towards Lazarus' tomb and he tells them to remove it. Martha appreciates Jesus for being there. She really does. She's probably frustrated he didn't get there early, but she understands. And she says, Jesus, I thank you for being here, but this is not a good idea. He's been dead for 4 days, and the odor of a dead body is crazy. And so for our sake, keep him in there. And Jesus says this, John 11, verse 40. Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? What is it that she should believe? And here Jesus promises us something that no other religious person or political person can promise you. Not Moses, not Abraham, not Buddha, not Muhammad, not Donald Trump. There's no religious leader or political leader that has looked death in the face and overcome it. And Jesus is claiming that he's the resurrection and the life. None of them overcome death or even claim to overcome it. But one person in human history has ever gone into the darkness of the grave and walked out by his own power. And he's standing in front of Mary and Martha and asking them, do you believe? I'm the resurrection and the life. Number 3, a word called truth. John 11, verse 25 says this. This is the key verse of our whole message. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? Do you believe? The whole premise and the whole question, what is it that you want me to believe? That I am fully God and fully human. That I meet you exactly where you're at. That you can overcome because I overcome. That God is not for death. He's not for sin. He's not for injustice. And he's the only person that can look at death and conquer death. Where is your sting, Paul says. Truth. I'm the resurrection and the life. And we love to talk about how awesome this story is for Mary and Martha. But let's look at the side of Lazarus. One of my favorite comedians, I don't know if he's Christian or not anymore, who cares, is John Crist. He has a funny comedian act on Lazarus. I don't know if you've heard it before, but if you haven't heard it before, he says, imagine Lazarus in this moment. Lazarus is in heaven. He's cleaning out his mansion, cleaning out his room, putting all the stuff that he wants to do. And Moses and Abraham, hey, let's go hoop. So he's hooping with Moses and Abraham, taking them to school, playing 21. And all of a sudden, there's someone on the intercom. Is there a Lazarus in here? Yeah? I don't know how to say this or mention this. This is my first time doing this, and honestly, this has never happened before. But, the big man upstairs, he says you got to go back. What? I'm in glory. I'm hooping with Moses and Abraham. What do you mean go back? Yeah, like I said, I don't know, man. I'm just delivering the message. You're going to have to go back, right? What Jesus meant by this truth is that his followers, death would not really be death. I love what Billy Graham said right before he died. One fine day you will hear that Billy Graham is dead. Don't you believe it? I'll be more alive than ever. I just changed addresses. They were all celebrating Lazarus being back alive and tearing these grave clothes off. But what you see next is about to change everything. The Jewish ruling council seeing this and saying that this is the final straw. We've seen Jesus do these miracles and these miracles. We follow him around. We've talked behind scenes. What are we going to do with this Jesus? But what we just saw and what we just heard, that's it. He's done. He's got to go. And throughout this, verse 53, John 11, so from that day on, that day, that moment, that miracle, that encounter, that I am statement, they made plans to put him to death, Jesus. And this marks the turning point in the Gospel of John. In less than 2 weeks, they would have killed Jesus from Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. To break up Lazarus' funeral, Jesus had to commence his own. I am the resurrection and the life. And lastly, this morning, just one word that changes everything, and it's this word called grace. Grace. In order for us to never die, Jesus had to die in our place. The penalty of sin is death. Sin separates us from a perfect and holy God. It doesn't matter if you come into this room making one mistake or 1,000 mistakes. When you put your sin, your mistakes, your shame, your guilt next to a perfect and holy God, you will always fail. Sin separates you from a perfect and holy God. And there has to be blood. There has to be consequences. And the central theme of the gospel is that on that cross, Good Friday, God made Jesus, who knew no sin, to become sin for us. God placed my sin, your sin, on Jesus. And that's why one of the last words Jesus says when he's on the cross is, God, God, Father, Father, why have you forsaken me? Because in that moment, Everybody's sin, everybody's shame, everybody's guilt was on Jesus. And God the Father, because He's holy, because He's God, He could not even look at His Son. Your sin, my sin, shame, guilt. Jesus can be the resurrection for me because He became the death for me. Paul says, where is death? Where is your sting? O grave, where is your victory? Which goes back to the central question and the whole reason for this encounter, the whole reason for this miracle, the whole reason for this I am statement, and it's this: so that you will believe. Do you believe? Jesus is everything of who He says He is. He is the light of the world. He is the way, the truth, and the life. He's the good shepherd. He's never going to leave you, never going to forsake you. He is the door. That some of you this morning, you've been walking through many doors of life hoping that it would bring you what it wanted to do, and it didn't. It might have brought you temporary joy, but it never brought you that satisfaction, that joy, that purpose, that life that everybody says. And for some of you this morning, you need to walk into the door of Jesus. He's the bread of life. He's the vine, you're the branches. He's the resurrection and life. He is everything of who He says He is. The question that He has for us this morning, the question He has in John 11, do you believe? Because Jesus says if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, you will be changed forever. Who is Jesus to you?
There's peace that outlasts darkness, a hope that's in the blood, and there's future grace that's mine today, that Jesus Christ has won. So I can face tomorrow, for tomorrow is in your hands. All I need you will provide, just like you always have. And I'm fine.